The president, as we speak, in the Netherlands, battling Vladimir Putin and the evil Russian Empire from encroaching any more on Western civilization. I wonder what Jed Babin thinks our president should do. Let's dial up Jed Babin, American Spectator columnist, former Pentagon official, senior fellow with the London Center for Policy Research, and he joins us this morning on our Turnkey.pro answer line. Jed, what can we expect from our 44th president today in regards to Crimea, Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin?
Well, he's going to Crimea River, but he's really not going to do much. And I don't think that he's having any intention of dealing with this thing in the way he should. Mr. Obama doesn't seem to be very good at foreign policy, shall we say. He's not scored anywhere yet in the world in, 6 years? And I don't suspect we're going to see anything better or different from here. He's not going to do what needs to be done, which really is to put in some fairly strong economic sanctions against Putin, not just the political flatulence we've seen so far.
You know, and speaking about his mindset, and I guess nobody can get inside his head, obviously, but you touched on it. Let's kind of elaborate a bit. It doesn't seem to me that he has even a remote interest in foreign policy whatsoever. Is that a safe statement, or is that hyperbole?
No, I think that's pretty safe. I think he's managed to prove over 6 years that he is interested in domestic policy. He wants to transform America's economy, but he really doesn't care much about international affairs and defense and intelligence and all of those things. I mean, those are not really things that he's basing his presidency on. He doesn't really see there's a future for him in it, and as a result, there's not much of a future for us.
But what do you think we should do? All right, so we know the Crimea Peninsula has been taken over by the Ukraine, or by Russia. Up next is eastern Ukraine. Should we move military assets near that border?
Oh, no. I'm not proposing that we go to war against Russia for any of this stuff. What I am proposing is we do something more on the economic side. There are some very strong economic sanctions. For example, we should be telling the Russians that they can no longer use the American banking system for any transactions. That would put their economy flat on its butt for, permanently. And they would have to sue for some sort of a reconciliation with us at that point. We should also be talking about Putin and what he's doing. President Obama has not done the most basic thing that an American president should do, which is to come out and condemn the guy. They say, hey, look, this guy's trying to revive the Cold War. He's trying to revive the Soviet Union. It's the wrong thing to do. It's against freedom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not hard to do. It's really kind of instinctive in most people, but it's certainly not in Mr. Obama.
How do you think, Jed Babin, the Poles would react if we really pushed to put that missile system back on their eastern frontier at this point? George W. Bush passed on it, and Barack Obama canceled it outright. Do you think that they would be open to perhaps rethinking that?
Well, I don't think, I'm not sure who you mean by they. I don't think Mr. Obama is open to it at all. He came up with the idea of a sea-based system as a replacement, and of course we don't have the ships and missiles to do that. So we really are in a position where the Poles have had a broken promise. I think at this point they'd probably welcome it. The Poles would, but the real issue is who's going to pay for it. And thanks to Mr. Obama's cuts to the military and the way our economy is not revived, I don't know that we can afford it.
Do you think President Obama is, holding back on coming out and bashing Putin just to save our allies? Because if Putin cuts off the gas supplies and energy supplies to our allies in Europe, then we're going to have to get involved.
No, I don't. Well, number one, I'm not sure what I believe be involved in your term, Amy, because I don't think we're ever going to go to war over this. But he's not doing anything to save any allies. The allies are sitting there shaking in their shoes, worrying about who's going to be next. So the real issue here is Putin going to cut off his nose to spite his face? He can't afford to shut down the gas supply to Europe because it'll bankrupt him. And, well, not bankrupt them, but pretty close. Mm-hmm. So he's not doing it to save anybody except, his own image in the world.
I think your idea of refusing Russian money into our banking system is a good one. I just wonder what kind of reciprocity we would have coming from the Russians regarding the cash reserves they already have in the UK, in France, in other Western democracies. I mean, there would be some pretty significant blowback from the Russians the other direction if, in fact, we were that tough.
Well, maybe. But at some point you have to say, what's this worth? I mean, you're going to have to at some point, if you're in a Cold War with somebody, you're going to have to say something nasty about them. I mean, the real issue is how can you do things with absolutely no pain and no risk? Well, you can't. And all through the Cold War, I mean, for almost 60 years, we heard the same thing from people. And then with all due respect, John, we can't fall into that trap. You have to be able to do something. You have to be able to say, we are going to absorb a little bit of pain on this side in order to inflict an awful lot of pain on the other side.
I'd like to hear the type of clarity that I used to hear from even Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld from time to time as far as a clarity of worldview or national interest.
Well, here you go. I mean, as I say in my article, which I'm looking now, isn't up yet on the website, but weakness is provocative. That's what Mr. Rumsfeld said all the time. And Mr. Obama is provoking our enemies greatly by being so incredibly weak. I just don't understand how he believes this is going to serve the best interest in the United States.
I look forward to reading that when it's posted at AmericanSpectator.org, and we appreciate your time as always, Jed.
It's my pleasure.
Take care. Jed Babin here with John and Amy on our Turnkey.pro answer line.